At my birthday banquet, Ling Yuan's deceased first love came back to life. She smiled softly, and Ling Yuan immediately wanted to bring her into the palace to make her his consort. I, Qin Yuxiu, only accept the role of wife, never concubine. Ling Yuan smiled and replied, Fine, but you'll just be a deposed empress. As soon as he finished speaking, all the concubines knelt down, begged to shave their heads and become nuns to serve me for life. Ling Yuan's expression changed drastically. I sat in the empress's seat, smiling lightly. In this harem, I'm the only one who calls the shots. Today is my 25th birthday. Early in the morning, Consort Li came to help me get ready. Outsiders only saw the birthday celebration held at Qinghe Pool and thought it was a grand event, but little did they know the emperor had invited officials with other intentions. Consort Li said with dissatisfaction, The empress is so beautiful, yet he still isn't satisfied. I looked at myself in the mirror. This once breathtakingly beautiful face has grown weary after wasting 5 years in the palace. I couldn't help but sigh quietly. He is the emperor. It's only natural for him to like whoever he wants and take whoever he wishes. Consort Li said resentfully. Does the empress still want him to keep this position? Wait a little longer, no rush, I answered calmly. Around Qinghe Pool, the silk tree flowers were in full bloom, dusted with powder. Consort Li picked up a fallen flower and rolled her eyes. Who doesn't pretend to be affectionate? Men are the best at fooling people. Ling Yuan once said the silk tree flowers, always growing in pairs, symbolize marital love. He planted them here and said there would only ever be me, and he would never betray me. But it had only been a year since he ascended the throne before his true colors showed, flirting everywhere, capturing countless noble women into the palace. The silk tree flowers are innocent. It was Ling Yuan who stained their purity. I took out a handkerchief and brushed the fallen flower off Consort Li's shoulder. If you don't like it, have them uprooted and removed. I'm disgusted just looking at it. When I arrived at Qinghe Pool, the meritorious nobles and concubines were already waiting early. Ling Yuan smiled and took my hand. Empress, today is your birthday. I've heard the officials and their families have prepared gifts to show their respect. Shall we take a look together? How long has it been since you last held my hand? About over a year. Ling Yuan's hands were truly beautiful, with distinct knuckles. I once loved watching him play the qin, captivated for hours. But even the deepest love turns into disgust after betrayal. Without showing any reaction, I withdrew my hand. The attendant Bao Xia immediately brought a basin of pine and cypress water. Please, Your Majesty, cleanse your hands. Ling Yuan's face darkened. After I washed my hands, I smiled and said, The noble ladies prepared gifts. Of course, we must see them. But according to ancestral customs, when receiving gifts, one must use pine and cypress incense to show gentlemanly grace. Since there is no incense now, water will have to do. I smiled and motioned Ling Yuan to sit. He took the dragon throne, and I sat in the phoenix seat. Before, I always felt the countless rules at banquets made us seem distant. But this time, I specially ordered a celadone jade vase with flowers placed between our seats, just enough to hide most of Ling Yuan's figure. Out of sight, out of mind. The noble ladies stepped forward one by one to present their gifts, but Ling Yuan clearly showed no interest. I knew he was waiting for that shadow that had lingered in his heart for so long. But even after all the gifts were presented, the person he wanted to see never appeared. Ling Yuan's face showed undeniable disappointment and anger. The empress usually treated the Marquis of Guangyang's household with great care. Why hadn't the Marquis's family presented gifts? Ling Yuan couldn't hold back and asked. I smiled inwardly. He couldn't wait. The steward smiled and replied, The Marquis's family has intentions, Your Majesty. Please look. After a screen was moved aside, a graceful woman in green appeared on a nearby platform, dancing with her back to us. Her movements were so captivating, even the lotuses in the pond seemed to come alive. When the woman turned around, all the concubines quietly gasped. Ling Yuan's gaze fixed on her, and he slowly rose to walk toward the railing. His eyes were filled with deep, unmistakable love. He murmured, "Qin Shu, is that you?" I pretended not to see and sipped my tea while enjoying the dance. Consort Li winked at me, and when I remained unmoved, she picked up her wine glass and came over. "Today is the Empress's birthday. I drink to you." Then in a low, annoyed voice, she said, I nearly strained my eyes. "Can't you see? She's the spitting image of Qin Yun Shu reincarnated." I drank the tea like wine in one gulp and smiled. "I know what's going on. Don't worry. By the way, finish your wine. No leftovers allowed." Consort Li rolled her eyes and left. I glanced back at Ling Yuan. He was still lost in his reverie. Qin Yun Shu was the woman Ling Yuan had fallen for when he changed his affection, the eldest daughter of the Marquis of Guangyang. At my 22nd birthday banquet, Ling Yuan saw Qin Yun Shu and was instantly smitten. The next day, an imperial edict was sent to the Marquis of Guangyang's household to make Qin Yun Shu a noble consort, an unprecedented promotion. Even though Qin Yun Shu never smiled at him, it didn't stop him from visiting her palace 3 times a day. A year ago, after Qin Yun Shu died of illness, Ling Yuan sat in her palace crying every day. Until a month ago, he suddenly revived and excitedly asked me, "Qin Shu's younger sister must have come of age by now, right?" Of course, I knew what he was planning. So, he used my birthday banquet as an excuse to invite the meritorious nobles and repeatedly emphasized bringing their families. The same performance 3 years later, he wanted to reenact it at my birthday banquet again. After the dance ended, Ling Yuan softly called out to the woman in green, "Yun Shu, you're back? You can't let me go, can you?" The woman in green smiled like a lark. "Your Majesty, are you missing my sister? Too bad, I'm not her." Then she gracefully walked forward and knelt before Ling Yuan. "I am the legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Guangyang, Qin Yu Xiu." Ignoring the officials present, Ling Yuan reached out to help her up. "Yu Xiu, that's a good name." When Qin Yu Xiu was helped up, her eyes were full of seductive charm. I could tell she was trying to lure Ling Yuan. "Compared to my sister, I guess the only thing good about me is my name." Qin Yu Xiu teased softly. Ling Yuan quickly added, "No, no, no. You're just as beautiful as your sister. Heaven has pity on me, letting me see this face again." Qin Yu Xiu covered her mouth and laughed, then glanced at me briefly as she lowered her head. I saw it, and I understood her intentions, but I said nothing, letting her put on her show. "Does your Majesty want to see this face every day?" Qin Yu Xiu's eyes sparkled, and her voice was soft as she looked up at Ling Yuan. I thought to myself, if I were a man, I probably wouldn't be able to resist either. "Of course I want to. If you're willing, I'll make you noble consort right now," Ling Yuan said excitedly. He probably didn't expect Qin Yu Xiu to have feelings for him. But unexpectedly, Qin Yu Xiu pouted, turned her head away, showing a trace of dissatisfaction on her face. "Your Majesty wants me to enter the palace because I look like my sister. You're treating me as a substitute." Being a substitute is one thing, but at least don't make me a concubine. Do both daughters of the Marquis of Guangyang have to become concubines? Qin Yu Xiu, want to be the main wife. At least that's respectable. Her words shocked all the officials. Li Fei was the first to stand up, grabbing the half-empty jug of wine and rushing over to splash it on Qin Yu Xiu's face. "Uft, you really think you're a gem? Dream on." Ling Yuan grabbed Qin Yu Xiu into his arms fiercely, eyes burning as he stared at Li Fei. "Li Fei, how can you be so rude?" But he didn't dare to scold further. After all, Li Fei's father, a general controlling half the empire, was sitting right there watching. I stepped forward, pulled Li Fei closer, and gently stroked her back. "Your Majesty, no need to get angry. Did Li Fei say something wrong? Her sister was indeed a seductive fox who bewitched the emperor. Now that she's finally gone, the harem had peace for only 2 days before another came. Li Fei is clearing out a demon. The emperor should reward her." Ling Yuan didn't expect me to say that. Since Qin Yun Shu died, I've barely spoken to him. Whatever he did, I didn't ask or interfere. I let him be. He probably thought I had become obedient, resigned. Before he could say anything, Bao Xia came forward to report. Your Majesty ordered the mimosa trees to be cut down, and they have already been removed from the garden. Ling Yuan looked at me in disbelief. Empress, you don't love the mimosa anymore? I smiled. Flowers are like people. After a while, you get tired of them. Something disgusting like that naturally can't be kept. Back then, he planted mimosa trees all over for me, and the officials praised the emperor and empress for their love. Now, everyone can tell, I find him disgusting. Ling Yuan was embarrassed and furious. Holding Qin Yuxiu's hand, he walked to the center. If the empress no longer loves me and is jealous and cruel, she doesn't deserve her position. Today, I will depose the empress. I ignored him, swept past, and sat steadily on the phoenix throne. Li Fei nodded at me, understanding perfectly. The next moment, she and all the concubines respectfully knelt on the ground. If your Majesty insists on deposing the empress, we are willing to shave our heads and become nuns, to accompany the empress for life by the flickering lamp and ancient Buddha. The concubines knelt, and their family members, powerful ministers and dukes, knelt as well. I sat on the phoenix throne, watching Ling Yuan's shocked face, smiling gently. In this harem, only I have the final say. Ling Yuan turned to look at me, his voice growing cold. I never knew the empress was so powerful, conspiring with the previous dynasty to rebel against me. I looked at him quietly, without speaking. He then pointed at Li Fei. It seems I've spoiled you all these years, making you forget who your true master is. Li Fei said nothing, and the whole Qinghe pond fell into a deathly silence. Ling Yuan, in a rage, grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it on the ground. You all deserve to die, daring to threaten me. Seeing him like this, he'd long lost any dignity and grace. It seems the comfort of the throne made the emperor forget whose corpses he stepped on to get here. I spoke coldly. Since your Majesty has decided to depose the empress, I will say a few more words today. During the winter snow disaster, when people were displaced, the emperor was busy mourning the noble consort. When hundreds of soldiers died defending the border, the emperor wiped his tears on the noble consort's robe. This year's drought left the people with no harvest, yet the emperor drowned his sorrow in wine and pleasures. Such a neglectful ruler, obsessed with beauty and pleasure, how does he have the right to depose me? Ling Yuan was stunned as he watched the disappointed ministers shake their heads and sigh. What? What are you talking about? When did these things happen? It's no wonder Ling Yuan didn't know. Many had submitted petitions over the past year, but he never read them. He still thought of himself as a wise ruler, believing the government was stable. But he didn't realize he had long been my puppet. From the day Qin Yunshu died, Ling Yuan had stepped into the trap I set. At my birthday banquet, Ling Yuan saw Qin Yunshu, who came with her father to congratulate, and stared at her for a long time, murmuring, "Finally found you." The next day, he issued an edict breaking the rules to name Qin Yunshu noble consort. He said, "The empress is diligent and without fault. Though I cannot give you the position of main wife, I will ensure you have dignity." And he did. Ever since Qin Yunshu entered the palace, gifts have flowed from the treasury into her chambers like a river. If she cast one more glance at the water lilies, the next day he would fill her palace with them. If she felt homesick, he would break protocol every month to take her back to the Marquis of Guangyang's residence for 2 days. If she was too lazy to move around, Ling Yuan allowed her not to pay daily respects to me. Li Fei and I sat by the pond feeding the fish while Bao Xia recounted how many rules Ling Yuan had broken over the past 3 months for Qin Yunshu. Li Fei rolled her eyes and said, "This is ridiculous. Does the harem belong to the Qin family now?" I saw Li Fei's bitter resentment and couldn't help but laugh. Don't get too upset. Her entering the palace has its benefits. It distracts the emperor, so naturally no one's restraining us anymore, right? Now that autumn is here, the weather's nice. How about we get out of the palace and go for a walk in the mountains? Li Fei smiled and said, "I'll go pack then. Tomorrow I'll follow you, madam, and we'll escape the boredom together." Watching Li Fei's lively back, I felt a little envious. Like her, I was born into a military family and once spoiled by my household, naive about the world. When Ling Yuan came to propose marriage, I thought he truly loved me. I thought I could happily live as a princess with no struggles. But it turned out he had long set his eyes on the military power my father held. He fought for the throne, and my father led troops to support him. Perhaps from the very start, he never loved me. What he loved was only my family's status. After my father died, with no powerful father-in-law to restrain him, he quickly took a new consort into the palace. He lay at my bedside, acting out a tragic scene. To secure the throne, I must rely on these ministers. Their daughters are in the palace, so they remain loyal to the court. I smiled and replied, I understand. Now that you are emperor, naturally, you have no choice. Though I smiled, my heart ached. So Li Fei entered the palace. Her entry was beyond her control. Her father replaced my father's post and became the new protector general. Li Fei's entry was meant to restrain her father's power. Back then, Li Fei's eyes still held innocence, and her smile was like a small sun shining brightly. Seeing such a free-spirited Li Fei, I seemed to see my former self and instinctively wanted to protect her. If she made a small mistake, I would cover for her. If she wanted something, I tried to fulfill it. I knew that if I couldn't shield her someday, she would lose her own light in this harem, just like I did. Many new consorts came afterward, but like me, they were stepping stones for Ling Yuan's ambitions. It wasn't until Qin Yunshu entered the palace that I realized Ling Yuan could be so passionate when he truly liked someone. Bao Xia said the palace was abuzz with gossip. Qin Yunshu never smiled, always wearing a calm and composed expression. I couldn't understand it. Ling Yuan didn't use her. He truly put his heart on her. How could she remain cold to him? God knows how much I longed for Ling Yuan's genuine affection. It wasn't until that day, when I saw the desolation in Qin Yunshu's eyes among the falling leaves, that I understood. She hated Ling Yuan with every fiber of her being. The first time Qin Yunshu saw me, she smiled warmly and said, Madam, the emperor has so many women. Can you really tolerate them all? Of course, I could not. But the fault was not theirs. What I couldn't tolerate was Ling Yuan, heartless and faithless. Seeing me silent, she smiled again. Empress, do you know what it feels like to love and not be loved? I dismissed the attendants and sat beside her, taking off my cloak to drape it over her shoulders. In the end, you have entered this palace. There's no going out. But she smiled even more wildly. I never intended to leave. I've already been defiled. My body is tainted. What good would leaving do? Even if I could leave, I wouldn't deserve him anymore. She smiled, and a tear slid down her cheek. That tear seemed to fall into my heart, making me inexplicably ache. For the first time, I realized Ling Yuan had taken away more than just these girls' freedom. He cruelly destroyed their spiritual anchor, letting them sink in this deep palace. The girl before me was as beautiful as if she'd stepped out of a painting, yet trapped inside the frame, lifeless. I wanted to say something comforting to Qin Yunshu, but in the end, I just sighed and adjusted the cloak on her shoulders. The autumn wind is strong. Don't let it harm your health. After that day, Qin Yunshu often came to my chamber and stayed for an entire day. I once asked her, "Why do you feel safe telling me these things?" She pointed at the nearby Li Fei, who was snoring deeply, and said, "If someone as foolish as her can survive here, it means you, madam, are kind and tolerant." Li Fei, hearing someone talk about her, rubbed her eyes and groggily said, "Who? I'm not foolish at all. I just need meat to eat." Qin Yunshu and I laughed together, just as Ling Yuan, who came to check on her, caught sight of us. Because I made Qin Yunshu smile, Ling Yuan was very pleased and rewarded me with a large pearl from the South Seas. "Empress, you always said you wanted a big pearl on your phoenix crown. Today, I give you one." Later, I thought many times. Perhaps from this moment on, I completely lost hope in Ling Yuan. Before his ascension, He said he would search far and wide for treasures to adorn my phoenix crown with the largest, brightest pearl. But he was always busy. Busy, busy, and 2 years had passed since I became empress. Now he remembered, but ironically, what was once a gift was now a reward, one earned because of another woman. From this moment on, I understood. He wasn't unable to find the pearl, he just didn't care enough to try. Ever since Qin Yunchu started coming here, Ling Yuan came more frequently too. To make Yunchu comfortable, he even renovated my bedchamber. As long as I acted on Yunchu's behalf, whatever I did, he would permit it. Once, when we left the palace, Yunchu took us to see the one she adored. Even from afar, her eyes were red-rimmed. I put my arm around Yunchu's shoulder and whispered, "The man Ling Yuan sent to protect you is watching." Yunchu swallowed her tears, but the emotions in her eyes couldn't be hidden. "Your Highness, his name is Su Qi. He's the master of this painting studio. Ambitious, but due to his background, he cannot take the imperial exams. If there's ever a chance in the future, please help him gain entry into the court so he can serve as an official and fulfill his aspirations. Then I can be at ease." Yunchu grasped my hand and spoke with a choking voice. I nodded solemnly. "Don't worry. I thought I would find a way to send her out of the palace, to let her openly meet the one she loved. I thought the reason she acted spoiled and childish like Liffey every day, competing for food, telling stories to the barely educated Liffey, was because she had come to terms with her fate. But just as she was slowly pulling herself together day by day, she died. She died with dignity. Dressed neatly, wearing the makeup she had before entering the palace, she swallowed gold to end her life. I bribed the imperial physician to conceal the fact that she swallowed gold, reporting only a sudden heart attack. I looked at Yunchu, and there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. I couldn't help but feel a sharp ache in my nose and tears fell. For her, this was something to celebrate. Her proud and pure heart had held onto such innocent hopes for love. Now, she died cleanly. It was better than living trapped in this dark cage. Ling Yuan cried like a 3-year-old child, tearful and blurry-eyed. He said to me, "Man Ning, do you know? I searched for her for many years and finally found her. But she no longer wants me." So, there had been someone else in his heart all along, yet he still pursued me. Those so-called feelings were just an act, a play, and I was merely his pawn from beginning to end. If that's the case, then I'll be the one to put an end to this pitiful, hateful drama. Clutching my chest, gasping through my tears, I said, "Before Yunchu's passing, we were close. If I cannot personally offer incense for her at Qingshan Temple, I won't have peace." Ling Yuan seemed moved and held me tightly, crying as he agreed. After Yunchu's 7th day, I took the albums of her paintings and poetry she left in my palace and went to Qingshan Temple. Su Qi, arranged by Baoxia, was already waiting at the detached villa. When he saw me, he was about to bow, but I stopped him. "Today, I don't come as the empress, but as Yunchu's close sister. No need to bow." Su Qi sat by the window. Sunlight poured in and lit his prominent nose. For a moment, I thought I saw Yunchu herself. They gave me the same feeling, calm, cool, yet proud. "You must be seeing me for the first time, but I have already met you at the painting studio. Yunchu told me your story, how you met there and fell in love at first sight." I handed him the albums and poetry collections. They were all poems of longing Yunchu wrote these past 2 years, and paintings of how she envisioned their reunion. She painted bamboo while he stood beside her giving guidance. Su Qi carefully touched the albums with his fingertip, as if trying to feel Yunchu's lingering warmth. Yunchu said, "If I could meet you, please convey to her that she is satisfied to have met you in this life. If fate allows in the next, she wishes to be your humble wife, living together simply and faithfully. She said you have great ambition and shouldn't drown in sorrow over her death. She hopes you work hard to pass the imperial exams and not waste your talent or her expectations." Su Qi slowly closed the album, paused, and his voice was hoarse. "Yunchu and I were deeply in love. After meeting her, I no longer cared for fame or wealth. I wanted to travel every mountain and river with her and live freely. After she entered the palace, I wanted to die. If not to find out the cause of her death, we would have been together in the underworld by now. Now that you know, do you want to avenge her? Without hesitation, Su Chi replied, yes. Good. I'll arrange for someone to recommend you into court. I want you to win over the ministers and change the power structure. With your talent and ability, I believe you can persuade them. I looked at him and whispered, do you dare to do it? Su Chi smiled, stood up suddenly, and knelt deeply. I'm just one lonely life. With Yunshu gone, I fear nothing. If I cannot avenge her, how can I deserve her love? I await your orders, Your Highness. I stayed at Qingshan Temple for a few days to calm my mind and plan the coming year's moves, until someone from the palace reported. The emperor is overburdened with worry and has fainted. I sat quietly in the carriage returning to the palace, thinking this intense passion Ling Yuan showed might just be of great use to me. If used well, I could keep him forever trapped in the pain of losing his beloved. Before getting out, I pinched myself hard. With tears filling my eyes and a tense expression, I entered Ling Yuan's bedchamber and sobbed uncontrollably at his bedside. Ling Yuan lay pale, lifeless-eyed. After a long while, he said stiffly, Empress, you've been through much. Was the blessing for Yunshu successful? I choked up. All went well, but while at the temple, I often dreamt of my sister. She said she missed the emperor terribly and couldn't bear to see him growing haggard. It pains her deeply. Upon hearing this, Ling Yuan suddenly sat up, grasped my shoulders, and asked urgently, You can dream of her? I nodded with red-rimmed eyes. The Taoist priest said she still clings to us, so she hasn't left yet. That's why she can enter my dreams at the temple. Ling Yuan immediately got out of bed, barefoot pacing several times, then turned to me with excitement. Quick, summon the Taoist priest from Qingshan Temple to the palace. For the first time, there was a flicker of light in his eyes. So he really loved Yunshu that much. I looked at the man I once adored deeply and bowed my head silently. What doesn't belong to me should never be forced. Bao Xia handed me a handkerchief nearby. I turned to look at her. Her eyes were full of sympathy. Your Highness, don't cry yourself blind. The master said your eyes are the most beautiful, just like the madam's. For a moment, I felt dizzy. Back when I was at the general's mansion, my father doted on and cherished my mother. Until Ling Yuan came to propose marriage, my life had been under my control. I never cried back then. Father said my eyes sparkled beautifully when I smiled. But now, these very eyes have been stained with disappointment, gradually dimming. The next morning, the old Taoist priest arrived. After performing a ritual around Ling Yuan's bedchamber, he stroked his long beard and sighed. The noble consort's spirit is not here. To find her, one must go where she spent her daily life. Ling Yuan ordered the gates of Xian Palace to be opened. The old Taoist lit an incense stick and nodded with satisfaction. Your Highness must be unable to let go, so her spirit lingers here. For the emperor to enter dreams is not difficult, as long as his soul aligns with yours. Ling Yuan quickly asked, Did she say anything? The priest handed over an incense burner. The noble consort has many things she wants to tell the emperor personally. It is not proper for me to hear them. At sunrise, the emperor's dragon energy is strongest. The consort can peacefully enter dreams then. This incense burner will help the emperor fall asleep safely before dawn. If your Highness trusts me, you may try it. Ling Yuan hesitated. After all, he was a man who had fought through blood and swords. He wouldn't easily believe the priest. When people doubt, if someone points out their exact doubt with private evidence, their suspicion doesn't just vanish, it turns into deep trust. In the end, it's a process of self-persuasion. The old Taoist suddenly stared fixedly toward the northwest corner, then closed his eyes and nodded before saying to Ling Yuan, The noble consort just said, perhaps the emperor does not believe she is nearby. Let me ask you, does the promise made in Yuhang 3 years ago still hold? I saw Ling Yuan's lips tremble and his hands shake uncontrollably. I knew he believed. This was the promise Yun Chu once made to him, that after 3 years in the palace, Ling Yuan would take her to Yuhang to travel. He thought it was a secret agreement just between them. But Yun Chu told me the very next day. Yun Chu, you really do remember me." Ling Yuan stood in front of her portrait, murmuring, "Bring all my things to Xian Palace. From today on, I will live here." I pretended to be terrified and knelt down. "Your Majesty, please reconsider. According to the priest, sleeping at sunrise every day, what about morning court?" Ling Yuan paused, then smiled. "In the 4 years since I ascended the throne, the people live in peace, the borders are stable, and the court is in order. From now on, the morning court will be handled by the Grand Tutor. Any major issues will be reported to me by him." With that, he issued the order, without further discussion. He would stay in Xian Palace every day, guarding Yun Chu. When Bao Xia returned, I was dozing under the parasol tree in the courtyard. Since becoming empress, for full years had passed, but I had never been this happy before. "Your Highness," after the priest left, he wandered off. "No one will know his whereabouts, so please rest assured." I closed my eyes and asked, "How is Su Qi's preparation coming along?" Bao Xia smiled. "The Grand Tutor said Mr. Su's writings are excellent. Soon, he will be introduced to the court and arranged to assist in the Emperor's study." My father was close with the Grand Tutor when he was alive. To avoid suspicion, I have never contacted him proactively, but I know that uncle, who raised me, will certainly agree if I ask. "That's good. We'll just wait for the right opportunity." At harvest time, the Grand Tutor showed Ling Yuan Su Qi's essays. Ling Yuan praised them highly and immediately decided to have Su Qi assist the Grand Tutor in handling affairs in the study. He even gifted Su Qi the former Prime Minister's mansion. Though Su Qi did not officially attend court, this showed Ling Yuan's love for talent. I understood his hypocritical, selfish, and vain psychology all too well. Officials in court all played favorites. Seeing Su Qi become one of the few allowed in Ling Yuan's study and being young and talented, the Su residence soon bustled with people eager to befriend him. Su Qi was smart. Within months, he had made many close allies. With Su Qi and the Grand Tutor lobbying the civil officials, I felt somewhat relieved. For the military officials, I needed a highly respected figure to sway them. General Su, Li Hui's father, was the best candidate. When the first snow fell, Li Hui came with a letter. "My father said he once fought alongside General Bai, and he sympathizes with your Highness, knowing you have cared for me in this lonely palace. If your Highness has any requests, as long as they benefit the country and the people, he will assist you. He will personally persuade the military officials." I peeled some freshly roasted chestnuts for Li Hui. "You're really trusting me this much? Aren't you afraid it will bring disaster?" Li Hui showed her 2 small tiger teeth and laughed. "Your Highness, I actually know everything. Life in the harem is harsh. The late emperor's harem often had miscarriages and poisonings. When I entered the palace, I was prepared to die. I knew my temper was fierce and my words blunt. I wouldn't survive easily here. But then I met your Highness, who treated me like an elder sister. The sisters in the harem are harmonious. If anyone's family has trouble, we help each other. These years, no one lacked food or clothes. Your Highness has been fair to all of us. We are truly grateful. After all, only women understand women. So please rest assured, it's not just me. All the sisters in the harem care deeply for Yun Chu and themselves, and we will be loyal to your Highness." Li Hui, usually carefree and loud, said all this with sincerity, which stirred something in me. I turned away, struggling to hold back my tears. Years ago, I loved Ling Yuan. Though I hated his womanizing, I suppressed my sorrow and treated every consort gently and fairly. Only I know the bitterness and pain beneath it all. Hearing Liffey's words now, I suddenly felt like crying for the emotions I had suppressed for years and for the kindness my sisters had shown me. Liffey shifted onto the couch, gently pulling me to lean on her shoulder. Your Highness, cry if you want. The Emperor isn't here, and you're not the Empress right now. We're just sisters, chatting and sharing. Let it all out. I forgot how much wine we drank that night with Liffey. All I remember is that in the end, Liffey, Baoxia, and I were all crying together. Life in the harem is so hard, but it's okay. We'll just keep holding on a little longer. I will definitely help you all leave, so you can find a wider sky and land to call your own. After a heavy snowfall, the imperial physician reported back that Ling Yuan's health was worsening. He stayed inside Ziyin Palace all day, refusing to come out. At night, he didn't sleep but relied on burning incense to fall asleep at dawn. Over time, his body was wearing down. Does His Majesty still dream of the noble consort every day? I asked, sitting by the window flipping through a book. The physician sighed. Not only does he dream, but today he became even more delirious, saying the noble consort will soon return with a changed soul to meet the emperor. During the day, he either drinks or clutches her clothes and weeps. I closed the book and sighed. I understand. Today, I will try to persuade the emperor again. Yes, he's gradually going mad. The incense the old Taoist gave Ling Yuan was indeed calming and soporific, but it contained an extra ingredient that wouldn't be detected. Long-term inhalation would penetrate deeply, causing mental confusion. Yun Chu is past, so she cannot enter his dreams. It's just Ling Yuan's thoughts and dreams playing tricks on him. I wore the cloak Ling Yuan gave me when I first entered the prince's mansion. It was made of deer skin, very warm, embroidered with plum blossoms. He had said, "When it snows from now on, Man Ning, you'll wear this cloak to play in the snow without feeling cold." I grew up at the border, and every winter I would build snowmen and have snowball fights. When I returned to the capital at 10, my father left a patch of empty yard for me to play in the snow during winter. Carrying a lunchbox, I walked into Ziyin Palace and saw Ling Yuan sitting under the corridor, staring blankly at the snowy scene. Yun Chu loved the snow. She rarely smiled, but when it snowed, her smile was gentle. He remembered Yun Chu loved snow, but forgot that I did too. I understood more and more that he only truly remembers those he consciously keeps in his heart. I brought the emperor's favorite snacks. Since he still misses Yun Chu, he should eat some, so he doesn't ruin his health, I said softly, sitting beside him. He smiled gently. Empress, only you understand my heart. Your Majesty, the court is stable now, but long absences from morning audiences. Before I could finish, Ling Yuan's face darkened. With the Grand Tutor here, nothing will go wrong. Besides, these past months, Su Qi has been assisting. I hear the people all sing praises of me. Empress, you need not worry. I smiled apologetically. I was overthinking. If so, let me visit the Grand Tutor and Lord Su on your Majesty's behalf, to show your Majesty's favor for his loyal ministers. Ling Yuan nodded approvingly. Go ahead. The Empress should act this way. When I entered the study, Su Qi was painting a winter scene of a beauty watching snow. The day I met Yun Chu, it was snowing heavily. The studio was empty, about to close, when she pushed the door open. Under her red umbrella, I saw the most beautiful sight of my life, Su Qi said, looking at his painting and recalling his past with Yun Chu. So Yun Chu loved the snow because she met Su Qi on a snowy day. Poor Ling Yuan only knew she was happy, but not why. The more you miss her, the more you must remember what you should do. The recent major matters have been handled well. All good news of the nation's fortune must be reported to the emperor. Disasters need not be reported. You and the Grand Tutor will manage those. Just one thing, do not mistreat the people. I reminded him. Su Qi smiled. Your Highness, rest assured, I know what to do. As New Year's Eve approached, Liffey and I went to Ziyin Palace to pay respects to Ling Yuan. I have something to ask your Majesty, I said. I heard the lady of Guangyang Marquis's household misses her daughter terribly and has fallen ill several times. I think it would be best to bring her into the palace, to Ziyin Palace, where Yun Chu last lived, to ease her heart. Ling Yuan always indulged everything related to Yun Chu. The Empress is thoughtful. Leave this to you. Ling Yuan said lazily, leaning against the window. Liffey added, I heard the Marquis's household has a younger daughter, Qin Yuxiu, who resembles the elder sister very much. No wonder the lady fell ill. Seeing the same face daily naturally causes pain. I had been watching Ling Yuan carefully. He visibly perked up at this news. I smiled. Yes, I heard she will come of age in June. Because she's pretty. Many matchmakers are already waiting for June to propose. I heard she cried many times after the noble consort left. Why not let her come into the palace with the lady? Liffey suggested. I pretended to hesitate, looking at Ling Yuan. That might not follow protocol. After all, the lady has a title. Ling Yuan's eyes were full of excitement, but he still tried to hide it. Since she is Yun Chu's sister, we'll make an exception this once. I smiled and agreed. Yes, I understand. This was my last chess piece. Ling Yuan thought of Yun Chu day and night. When he saw Qin Yuxiu, who looked almost exactly like Yun Chu, he would surely want to bring her into the palace. I only needed to publicly disgrace him before the ministers, to make him lose face and trust. With the help of Grand Tutor Su Qi and General Su, plus pressure from the concubines, I could finally control this emperor. By tradition, outsiders should not meet the emperor. But Ling Yuan, claiming he missed Yun Chu and wanted to see her family, stayed in Ziyun Palace. The day before New Year's Eve, the lady of Guangyang Marquis brought Qin Yuxiu into the palace. The moment I saw Qin Yuxiu, tears welled up uncontrollably. She and her sister were cut from the same mold, not only in appearance, but in mannerisms. She loved to cling to her sister from a young age. When her sister studied, she'd nap on her lap. When her sister painted, she played with the paints nearby. As she grew older, Yun Chu personally taught her how to behave. Now, looking at her, sometimes I almost forget she isn't Yun Chu. The lady wiped her tears. I choked up and said, Yuxiu has grown up. When she marries a good husband someday, Yun Chu's spirit will rest peacefully. I knew Ling Yuan was behind the screen watching. I could even imagine his eyes red with emotion. I kept mentioning that once Qin Yuxiu came of age, she could be betrothed, just to provoke him. The lady seldom comes to the palace. Why not have her visit my chambers as well? Li Fei was also close to Yun Chu and would very much like to meet her, I suggested as noon approached. I led them inside my palace, and soon after, Ling Yuan followed. I gave Qin Yuxiu a glance, and she smiled. I'd like to change my clothes. Aunt Bao Xia, please lead the way. Bao Xia took Qin Yuxiu to the back courtyard, and not long after, Ling Yuan caught up. He stared at Yuxiu blankly, murmuring, Yun Chu, is that you? Guided by Bao Xia, Qin Yuxiu obediently bowed. Your Majesty, you've mistaken me. I am Qin Yuxiu. Ling Yuan paused for a moment, then smiled. You and your sister are very much alike. Judging the time was right, I sent someone to escort Yuxiu away. After seeing off Lady Guangyang Ho, I had just picked up my brush to make a few strokes when Ling Yuan entered. Are you painting Yun Chu? He recognized the subject. I nodded. Seeing Qin Yuxiu today stirred many feelings. He sighed. If only she were Yun Chu, that would be perfect. I smiled. It doesn't matter if she isn't. As long as I see her as Yun Chu's sister, that's enough. Upon hearing this, Ling Yuan's eyes brightened. Yes, as long as she's treated as Yun Chu, that's enough. For the next 6 months, under the influence of the incense, Ling Yuan hardly left Ziyun Palace. Every month, I would bring some peace charms and paintings to Ziyun Palace. These are from Lady Guangyang Ho, sent by someone on her behalf. Since her sister Yuxiu misses Yun Chu, she made these to be placed here, so that when Yun Chu returns, she can see them and feel her sister's longing. Ling Yuan naturally agreed. By sending something every month for him to see, not only was he thinking of Yun Chu, but Yuxiu's presence also began to occupy his mind. Until the end of June, he suddenly summoned me to Ziyun Palace and awkwardly asked, I heard that at Yun Chu's younger sister's coming-of-age ceremony recently, the Empress prepared a generous gift. Thank you for your care. I smiled. That is only what I should do. A few days later, he suddenly became lively again, ordering the cleaning and tidying of the temporary palace, saying he had neglected me this past year and wanted to hold a birthday banquet for me at Qing He Pool 1 month later. He invited many officials to celebrate together. When Li Fei heard the news, she came to see me. "Your Highness, we've finally waited for this day. But it's a little disgusting, using your birthday banquet to get close to Qin Yuxiu." I smiled calmly. It's not the first time. At my 25th birthday banquet, Ling Yuan finally met Qin Yuxiu as he wished. What he didn't expect was that Qin Yuxiu danced a dance once performed by Yun Chu. What he also didn't expect was the way Qin Yuxiu's eyes lingered on him, full of affection. I sat quietly in the phoenix throne, watching Ling Yuan step closer to Qin Yuxiu. Bao Xia whispered softly in my ear. "Miss Yuxiu said that as long as she can avenge her sister, even if your Highness speaks harshly or acts excessively, she will bear it." Lady Guangyang cherished her daughter deeply. After Yun Chu's death, she sank into sorrow. Until Su Qi went to visit them, told the story of himself and Yun Chu, explained my plan, and gained support from both the Lord and Lady Guangyang. We used Yuxiu as bait to lure Ling Yuan step by step until today, at my birthday banquet, he left me to approach Yuxiu. I gave Li Fei a look, and she immediately came over with a cup of wine. "Your Highness, once you wear that dress, you look exactly like Yun Chu reborn." I whispered. "Make sure to do it thoroughly later. You need to provoke his anger." So when Yuxiu deliberately said she wouldn't become a concubine, Li Fei rushed over and splashed half a jug of wine on her. Ling Yuan looked at the delicate beauty wronged and immediately felt sorry for her. I continued. Her sister was the fox spirit who enchanted the emperor. Now that she's finally dead, the palace has had only 2 peaceful days before another one arrives. Whenever it involved Yun Chu, Ling Yuan's thinking ceased. Moreover, I had always treated Yun Chu well. Suddenly saying such things now caught him off guard, and I gave him no time to react. Immediately, a palace attendant reported that the Hahuan tree he had planted for me was cut down by my order. All the face he had painstakingly maintained, the show of imperial love between emperor and empress, the praises from ministers and people about the harmony of the emperor and empress, I tore off that false curtain in public. He lost face completely. Ling Yuan's anger reached its peak. Holding Yuxiu's hand, he coldly stared at me. If the empress no longer holds me in her heart and is jealous and cruel, she does not deserve her position. Today, I deposed the empress. That was the exact sentence I wanted. I wanted him to say it in front of everyone, to let all the ministers see how an emperor who ignores state affairs for beauty crushes a virtuous and kind empress. Those who had wavered after Su Qi's persuasion now shook their heads in disappointment. I looked at the furious Ling Yuan and coldly recounted his madness this past year and the suffering of the people. Ling Yuan pointed at me and shouted angrily, "Guards! Where is General Su? Drag the empress away." General Su said loudly, "Before your majesty deals with the empress, I have a question. Was it true that the empress's maternal family, the Bai generals, tragically died on their way back to the capital? We soldiers, we earn our merits amid the clash of swords and bloodshed. Which man in the army doesn't carry scars? We don't fear pain. But whenever we suffer wounds, we think of protecting the country and the people behind us, protecting the emperor. That is why we endure. But now I've heard that General Bai's death was a deliberate murder. If this is true, not only am I disheartened, but so are all the soldiers. General Bai risked his life for the court, guarding the border for over 10 years, covered in scars. He was also a great contributor to the emperor's ascension. If such a man meets a bad end, I fear deeply. The ones we fought to protect are actually the ones who want to kill us." General Su's voice was loud and firm, each word echoing across the Qinghe pool. About a month ago, the Grand Tutor sent me a message confirming that for over half a year after Ling Yuan ascended the throne, my parents were murdered. Those assassins were sent by Ling Yuan. He used my father's military power to take the throne but feared his authority and did not trust his loyalty. Being arrogant, He believed that as long as my father lived, some would say he only became emperor because of him, so he could not tolerate my father's existence. He secretly set an ambush and killed both my father and mother. Without my father's restraint, he could bring anyone into the palace with ease. After this, the Grand Tutor remained suspicious. He knew Ling Yuan was behind it but lacked evidence. Only a month ago, when Bao Xia went to Guangyang Marquis's residence to deliver a congratulatory gift to Qin Yuxiu, the Grand Tutor had gathered enough proof and had Bao Xia pass it to me. I thought Ling Yuan was just a playboy. I never expected him to be so ruthless. I petitioned the emperor to thoroughly investigate General Bai's murder case and reassure the army, General Su declared. Ling Yuan took step after step backward, so angry he was speechless. At the right moment, the Grand Tutor produced the evidence. Honorable ministers, please review. This is the truth behind General Bai's murder. The ministers were smart men. They could obey the emperor, but could never accept an emperor who might kill their entire families at any moment. The Son of Heaven is equal to the common people before the law, Su Qi spoke. I looked at Ling Yuan, his eyes full of confusion and panic. Seeing him about to collapse, Qin Yuxiu stepped forward to support him. Hidden in her sleeve was the fragrance powder. Upon smelling it, Ling Yuan's mind started to falter, whispering something softly. Qin Yuxiu leaned beside him, suddenly fearful, saying, "Your Majesty, what are you saying? How could you kill all the ministers?" Chaos erupted among the officials. I stood and calmly said, "The emperor has lost his mind." Quickly, someone helped the emperor to his chambers to rest. After Ling Yuan was taken away, I looked at the ministers kneeling all over the floor and said, "The emperor is sick with worry. If others find out about this matter, it will likely cause unrest at the border and alarm the common people." The Grand Tutor led the voices loudly. "We respectfully invite Empress Dowager to rule behind the curtain and stabilize the court." Others quickly agreed. I smiled and said, "When my father was alive, he often taught me that the most important thing is the people living in peace and prosperity. It doesn't matter who governs the kingdom. What matters is whether the person truly cares for the world and its people." Thanks to the Grand Tutor for gathering evidence about my father's murder. I hope such a thing never happens again. The court has been neglected for some time. If you all trust me, by Manning, from tomorrow I will begin to organize the court affairs, for you and for the people. The Grand Tutor led the ministers in saying, "We respectfully welcome Empress Dowager to govern behind the curtain." Ling Yuan was raving mad inside Xian Palace, while I was busy handling state affairs. Only today do I have a moment. "How has the emperor been recently?" I asked with a smile. He sat by the window watching the slowly falling leaves. "Autumn is coming." I looked at the man before me, thin and pale, no longer the dashing figure he once was. The emperor was once one of the most charismatic princes among the royal brothers. Now his decline is truly shocking. He laughed bitterly. "No matter how charming I was back then, it can't compare to the scheming of the person beside my pillow. Since when did you start coveting my throne?" I sat across from him and quietly said, "It's not about coveting. I just think you don't deserve it. You wield your power as emperor to control women's fates, deceiving us all into this deep palace, then throwing us aside to watch our youth and beauty fade." He laughed loudly. "I am the emperor. The emperor has the power to do this. My father did it before me, so why can't I? My mother was forcibly brought into the palace by my father. Even though my father favored her, people still mocked her humble origins. Even though she bore me, and though I am talented both in literature and military affairs, I was still looked down upon and neglected because of my mother's background. But who created all this? Wasn't it my father's power? So, I want to be the most powerful person. I want those who mocked my origins to see who the real emperor is." He stood up excitedly. I had never known this was his reason for wanting to be emperor. When I met him, his mother had already passed away from illness. He was the most talented among the princes, but not the best candidate for crown prince. Only after marrying me and allying with my father After the other princes fought each other to ruin, did he seize the throne? He continued, but what good is being emperor? I still feel utterly empty. I thought that once I stood at the peak of power, with everyone bowing to me, I would be satisfied. But my heart remained hollow. Until I met Yun Chu. I know what I did was unfair to you, but only she is the medicine that heals me. Listening to him, I remembered the past and realized that those moments I thought were beautiful were just emptiness to him. It had all been a one-person show of feelings, just me moved alone. Thankfully, I saw clearly I no longer love him. What a pity for your deep feelings. Yun Chu never cared. She has always loved someone else. As for who that is, you can ponder that yourself. I stood up, preparing to leave. Suddenly, he shouted behind me. Impossible. She and I have known each other since childhood. On New Year's Eve, when no one paid attention to me, I went out bored and sat under the eaves to watch the moon. She sat beside me all night. She told me to be strong and not let others control my feelings. That day, I recognized her at once. The mole at the corner of her eye hadn't changed. I even sent someone to investigate. She entered the palace with the Guangyang marquis couple on New Year's Eve that year. She once cared for me. After entering the palace, I said it many times, and she never denied it. How could she not have feelings for me? I was stunned in place. My legs felt as if weighed down by 1,000 pounds. Slowly, I turned to look at him. It was him. It really was him. I think she was probably just too lazy to respond. After all, she hates you deeply. She can't even bother to smile at you, so why would she waste words on this? It won't change the fate she's already accepted by entering the palace. Besides, with her around, you would never find the right person. This is her way of taking revenge on you. I lowered my voice and said, just from a mole at the corner of her eye, Your Majesty could be deluded for so many years? Loved her all those years? My voice trembled slightly as I asked. Ling Yuan paused, then spoke softly. She was the only one who ever reached out to me. For over 10 years after that, I kept remembering that bright moonlit night and her encouragement. She was the only light in my gray life. I was willing to do anything for her. Even if she asked me to give up the throne and live as ordinary spouses with her, I would. This throne means nothing. Even with overwhelming power, my mother won't come back, and Yun Chu won't stay. I didn't know how to describe my feelings at that moment. Surprise, heartache, helplessness. The moonlight, though not as strong as sunlight, is clear and bright and lights many people's way home. So, why are you so troubled? There will always be a world to prove your talent. If you can't be the dazzling sun, be the pure moon. There will always be a sky that belongs to you. I controlled my tears, speaking slowly and carefully. Ling Yuan seemed stunned, his whole body stiffening as he stared at me. After a long while, he struggled to say, How did you know? The palace sweets are too sweet and get cloying. If you get the chance, you must try the baked flatbread. That's delicious. Big tears fell from my eyes. Ling Yuan stood before me, his chest rising and falling rapidly. He covered his chest, gasping, and asked, by Manning, was that little girl back then you? How absurd. While I was loving him wholeheartedly, his heart belonged to someone else. But who would have thought that person was his childhood self? When my father took me to the palace, I didn't like the strict rules at the banquet and sneaked out. That's when I saw a little boy staring at the moon alone. His embroidered clothes made me think he was some noble son. I stayed with him all night, watching the moon and telling stories. But that night was just one of many nights in my life, not special. I never imagined that night meant so much to Ling Yuan, that it was so important he mistook someone else and stubbornly showed his love to the wrong person. He ruined Yun Chu's whole life and destroyed mine. Impossible. Even though it was night, I clearly remember the mole at the corner of the eye. It can't be you. Ling Yuan's voice trembled. I slowly brushed back my stray hair at my forehead. Turns out you never really looked at me. I fell from a horse, and a pebble scraped off a patch of skin near my eye. It healed, but the mole was gone. If you had looked closely, you'd see a faint scar at my eye corner. Ling Yuan suddenly collapsed into the chair, deflated. He muttered quietly, "It was you all along, you were always by my side. I mistook the person and treated you so badly. I ignored him and turned to leave. By the time I stepped out of Xian Palace, night had fallen. I looked up. There was a bright full moon hanging high in the sky, just as bright as the one I saw as a child. But who could have imagined, after more than a decade, it would end like this?" The next morning, Bao Xia woke me in a panic. "Your Highness, the Emperor has passed away." He was found quietly sitting in the courtyard, with 2 letters beside him, one for by Manning, one for the Empress. The letter to me was written in blood. It was a painful apology and confession. Every line was full of his despair and regret. He said he had no face to live in this world. After reading it, I handed it to Bao Xia. "Burn it." I would not accept his apology. Empty words could never bring back my parents' lives or the years I lost. In the letter to the Empress, he revealed the location of the imperial seal and wrote a will, naming me Empress by Manning as his successor. I had Bao Xia deliver this letter to the Grand Tutor. From then on, I became the rightful Empress. On New Year's Eve, I sent 22 dishes and many gifts to Guangyang Marquis' mansion. Previously, to anger Ling Yuan, I had to slander Yun Chu and use Yuxiu, but now it was time to clear their names. Yun Chu's coffin was taken back by the Marquis and buried in the Qin family ancestral grave. Su Qi was alone. The Marquis had no sons, so he petitioned to adopt Su Qi as his heir, and I agreed. That year, the Grand Tutor was very happy and invited General Su and Su Qi to stay up drinking at Guangyang Marquis' mansion. After getting drunk, he hugged General Su and cried, "Old friend, I have finally made peace with Brother Bai." That New Year's Eve banquet had no officials' wives attending, only the concubines. There was so much to do these days. The sisters all worked hard. Since we met and accompanied each other for a while, I'll toast you all first. Tonight, let's keep watch together one last time. Tomorrow, everyone can go home and celebrate happily. These are gifts for you: silver, estates, shops, and houses. If you never plan to marry, these will be your capital to live on. If you marry, this is your dowry. Only one thing: no matter where life takes you, never let yourself be wronged. And remember, no matter where you are, I'm your eldest sister. That New Year's Eve was lively. We cried and laughed until dawn, then each returned to the palace to sleep. I slept until noon. When I woke, Bao Xia and Li Fei were chatting. "Sis, get up. Everyone's waiting." Li Fei smiled. Li Fei and I went to the main hall. All the concubines had changed into regular clothes. We, your humble concubines, kneel to bid farewell to our eldest sister. My tears started flowing again. All right, if you miss me, come see me anytime. Don't act like it's the last time. Now go on." After seeing them off, I looked at Li Fei. "Why aren't you leaving?" She grinned and hooked her arm through mine. "I'll stay with you until after the 15th. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll miss me too much." I poked her forehead. "I'm afraid what you can't bear to leave isn't me, but the palace food." After the 15th, I made Li Fei county lady. I also issued a law. Throughout the country, women who remarry after divorce will receive a yearly subsidy from the court. Women wishing to divorce can write a divorce letter and submit it to the local office. Once stamped, it takes effect. Bao Xia peeled an orange for me, smiling. Only a woman can truly help us women. On my 26th birthday, Li Fei woke me early. "County lady, keep your voice down. The emperor's been tired lately." Li Fei smiled. "Tired? I've prepared wonderful gifts and want her to see them early." Li Fei took me outside, where the sisters had returned. Some with husbands, some with parents, some holding treasured pipa instruments, some carrying scroll paintings, all with rosy faces and smiling lips. "Eldest sister, happy birthday." I held back tears and teased, "You all really?" But inside, my heart blossomed with joy. So good. The end.